Everyone, welcome to the Frankie and Gio show. I've named it now because Frankie's going to become a regular, hopefully. Anyway, Frankie, how is oneself?
I'm very good, mate. Very good. Slightly disappointed. The season's starting to come to an end. I like the lower league football as well, don't I? And all that's starting to wrap up. So, yeah, I'm a little bit disappointed. But then I suppose I'll start looking forward to the Euros once it's all done, mate.
You've got the playoffs. I love the playoffs.
I'm actually off to one this Sunday, Bromley. I'm going to Wembley to watch them. So
there you go.
There you go.
I love the playoffs. I do. It's just intense, isn't it? It's just there's a lot to play for, and it's difficult if you're in it. But as a neutral, there's a lot. 4 teams have got a lot to play for in the semi-finals. So bring them on, I say. And then, like you said, the Euros is 6 weeks away. It's not that far away.
No.
So anyway, right, we're here to discuss all things West Ham. We're going to kick it off with something that was mentioned on the Athletic podcast this week. David Ornstein has said that Mohammed Kudus does have a release clause in his contract at West Ham United. Now, for context, when we signed him, it was stated by the sort of West Ham and the nose and journalists that did not exist in his contract. So perhaps Ornstein could be wrong on this one. But what was very public was when Brighton were trying to sign Mohammed Kudus before we got him. That was one of the stumbling blocks, that Kudus was insisting on a release clause, and that is what Brighton were getting put off by. Then obviously we signed him, so it was a case of, well, how we managed that. And there was an assumption that we've sort of just paid him more money in order to get that out of his contract, but perhaps Ornstein would be correct. What's your take on this, Frankie? Are you bothered if he does have one, or would it determine would the price determine if it would impact you or not?
Yeah, I think that number, that figure, is obviously really important. I mean, what's Kudus worth? I mean, looking at his ability, I think only because he's gone missing for a few games, does it mean that he may not sort of reach that £100 million figure? I think in terms of ability and in terms of what he can offer to a football team, mate, £100 million is, I think it's a very, very fair price tag. So, for somebody coming in and making that sort of money, it's this big money for West Ham. We do need to get away from selling our biggest talents. We've always done it over the years. I felt like with our increasing sort of stature and increasing sort of stadium and status of a football club that we wouldn't necessarily have to do those sorts of things anymore. But, mate, I think it would be really disappointing if we were to lose Paqueta and Kudus in one window. And by having 2 clauses like that in your big players, I guess that's the risk and that's the danger. I know some people would say, well, we can go and reinvest that money. The only thing where I would be slightly okay with it and think it's not the end of the world is if we have got that managerial change and a new manager comes in, and you've got Stighton, who's been sort of really looking and building a bit of a list for us. If we've got that money to go and really effectively use that in this, what everybody's seeing as a bit of a rebuild, it actually might work out for the best. So I'm weirdly going to stay positive on this one, that Kudus can go missing a little bit. We all know he's fantastic. Yes, I don't want to sell players. But if he has got that clause in there and it's 80 million plus we've got that from Paqueta as well, you've got a new man who comes in there and he's got all that resource available to him with Stighton to sit down with and go, right, let's build something. Mate, I might end up being for the best. Who knows?
And then you've got to throw in the Ben Rama money, the Tilo Kehrer money. Suddenly you've got like 200 million coming in without even spending anything. Like net spend zero would be 200 million. I'm quite sort of, I wouldn't say pro selling players. I think it's something this club have been bad at. I think I would suggest that maybe January transfer window has possibly been the best window we've done under David Sullivan as chairman in terms of selling players, in terms of moving on Fornals, Benrahma and Kehrer and getting the money we got for them. Maybe not so much Fornals, but Benrahma's going to talk from France is they're going to activate that 12 million option to buy on him, plus they played 5 to 8 million or something to loan him, and then the Tilo Kehrer money to get about over 30 million for those two. Bearing in mind we spent about 30 million of those, I think we've done okay with it. Obviously I've got grievances for not bringing anybody in, but in terms of those squad players moving on, I think they've done okay in January actually securing that money, and I'm not even adverse to selling our best player as long as as Frankie said, it's reinvested correctly and it's planned for. So when it comes to Lucas Paqueta this summer, I'm not scared of losing him. I think the club are in a win-win situation. We get 85 million or we have a really good player next season. It's one of the two. I think both things are positive for West Ham. With Kudus, though, I actually go against everything I've just said there. I don't want to lose him at all because I think there's a lot more to come from him. I don't think we've seen the best of him. I think he can go on and become world class. I genuinely believe that. I believed it when I seen him at Ajax, and everything I've seen at West Ham would just suggest that he can go on and do that. I think maybe Paqueta going would actually be the best thing for Kudus because it could mean that he shifts into the middle of the park and that we might see a better version of him in there. 100 million, I think that's possibly a fair fee, although I'd still be slightly disappointed to lose him for that, although it's still a substantial fee, and I'd be surprised if anybody does pay it. I don't know. I just think there's a top talent in there, and I'd be a little bit disappointed to see him go and do what I think he can do and at another club. I think he'll go in the future, Kudus. I don't think he'll be here in 5-6 years' time. It's just a bit too soon for me. I think there's another year or two in him at West Ham where we can try and get up to the level that Kudus wants to play at before we inevitably have to do the Declan Rice thing, which is we're not good enough for Declan Rice. We have to let him go because we can't do what he wants to achieve. With Kudus, let's try and achieve those things while he's at the club rather than just have a one-season wonder out of him kind of thing. And for context, David Ornstein didn't mention a fee. He just said there was a release clause and left it at that, really. Moving on to Aaron Cresswell then, Frankie. Bit of a surprising report this week. Rashane's confirmed it as well, which was that the club have offered a contract to Aaron Cresswell. It's been rejected, but they're still hoping he will be here at West Ham next season and he will sign a new deal. What was your thoughts on this news?
So you know that I'm a big Cresswell fan and have been. I think he's been, in terms of value for money, return on investment that we've had from him, he's been fantastic. I think he delivers a good ball. I think it's been underestimated how good a ball he delivered for us from that side. I think he's just been a really good servant for West Ham. Now, a lot's to be said for loyalty. A lot's to be said for people who commit themselves to a football club these days. The fact that he's 1 year away from testimonial status, which I know doesn't really happen anymore in these days, but I feel it should, because I think people should be honoured when they make commitments to football clubs. And if somebody does give that dedication and service, then it should be rewarded, and it deserves the fans all giving them the praise. I don't think many fans will see it that way, because I think some people haven't forgiven him for Frankfurt and for things like that, and some people don't think that he's been particularly that good for West Ham. So from my perspective, I think he's been a great player for West Ham. I've always really liked him as a person. I think he's, really humble, really dedicated man who's given everything for the club. And, I would have liked to have seen him hold on for one more year, just to get that status, be around the club. And we've lost a lot of West Ham people recently. And with who's going to go out the door potentially this year, it could be even less with familiar people who know the football club. And I think a lot's to be said for that. I think people who can understand what the big matches are about, that when you play Tottenham and you're in training and these players can get in other people's ears and explain what this means to the fans and what it means to West Ham, and just what the club's all about, really, I think is really important. So, look, do I want him to be playing first team football next year? Absolutely not. Do I want us to sign a left back replacement? We absolutely must. It's time. We keep needing it every single window and we never go ahead and do it. We have to bring in a left back. I know Emerson's a good player, but he's had this hot and cold spell, and at the moment he's really gone off the boil a little bit for me. So I think we need another left back. I certainly don't want Cresswell being the backup to Emerson next season. I think that would be a bad move. So he is kind of surplus to requirements, really. His services aren't needed at West Ham anymore from a playing perspective. But do I think there's any harm in him staying around in a year of transitional period and being an old wise head who gets the football club? I would keep him around, and that's it. So, yeah, it's a bit different for me as to reasons why I would like him to sign a 1-year extension. It certainly isn't for playing football, but I don't think there's any harm in him having him around.
Yeah, I've softened my stance on it. Initially, when I saw it, I thought, "Oh, what are we doing?" I thought this just sums West Ham up because he's actually been here 10 years already now, Frankie. This is his 10th season because he signed in 2014 because he had that season under Allardyce before Slav came in. And, he's not going to get a testimonial because of stadium issues. I know people say, "Oh, he doesn't need one. He should be rich enough." But it's players these days give the money to charity. It's not for them, as Frankie said. It's like an event of recognition and thank you for your service rather than a fundraiser.
And how good was the Dean Ashton one?
Yeah,
like when he come back,
like when Ashton.
Yeah, but that testimonial is great. It's a day out. It's a family thing. It's getting involved. It's Dean Ashton scoring that goal was incredible. Like it can still be fun. Time. Yeah, and that's it. And it's brilliant. And it's still a really nice day out for everybody. So I think, I understand the financial side of it, but it can still be something. They're the extra little things I think we miss as a football club right now. Those little details that make all the difference, that players look around them and go, wow, why have this many fans turned up for a nothing game in a friendly? And it makes the club feel special. Those are the little details that I think we used to do that maybe we miss now.
It just irritates me that the board wouldn't give him a testimonial because of costs and stuff. I think, and they said, "Oh, it cost be like $250,000, which is a lot, but it's not a lot really, isn't it?" And when the fans point at London Stadium and say, "That's not our home," the board continued to give us reasons as to why it's not our home. They said, "Yeah, it is. This is the home of West Ham." Well, what about testimony? No. We're not paying for a testimony for Cresswell. Okay, so is our home or not then? Because you're saying one thing, but you're acting a completely different one. You're acting as if it's somewhere that you went and you play there, 19 league games a season, and that's it. And that's essentially what it is, but they keep telling us different. And I just think it's really cheap of them to sort of devalue a player's 10 years recognition. But when the news first came out, we'd offered him a deal. I thought, what are we doing? Why are we trying to get this 34-year-old to continue playing next season? We should be looking to bring in a younger, I say better left back. I think Cresswell's had a good season when called upon, actually. I don't think he's done any harm, actually. I think there's been concerns when he does go to play. I think, oh no, how are we going to get on with Cresswell? I think he's been fine. He's been up against really good wingers and he's done okay. He's more than held his own at this level. But since my first reaction, I think, well, a bit like yourself, would it harm to have an old head around the club, especially if Agbona moves on as well, and that's one of the sort of the older players moving on? He does tick the homegrown box. It would just mean one less player we need to worry about. And I think it's possibly because the expectation is Johnson's going to move on, so we're already needing to get a right back. And to replace these players does cost a considerable amount of money. If you're going to let Cresswell go for free and you bring in the left back, it's going to cost, I don't know, say 5 to 10 million. Has been conservative on a transfer fee, plus the sign-on fee, plus the similar wages to what Cresswell's on probably. So it will cost the club quite a few million to replace Cresswell, a few million to replace Agbona, a few more million to replace Johnson. So you've already spent 30 million. All you're doing is replacing like for like. You've not even upgraded yet. You've not even started to try and upgrade Antonio and put him on the bench. You're just replacing squad members essentially. So I guess it does make sense for the club for, like you said, off the pitch reasons, but also financial reasons, because there's already a bit of work to have been done without adding more players on the exit list. I want to ask you, Frankie, about the managerial situation we've got. I want to leave this as open as possible to say what you want regarding potential replacements. But one question I did want to ask in particular was, how likely is it, do you think, David Moyes is going? Because I've always, in the last couple of weeks, I felt it's inevitable he's going. I feel like I'm seeing a different David Moyes last 2 weeks in press conferences. He's a lot more relaxed now, like a weight's been lifted off his shoulders. But I don't know, there's a few indicators which would suggest it's not quite that certain he's going. So I was hoping to grab your opinion on it.
Well, it isn't what some certain people are going to want to hear, and it might be what others are quite happy to hear, I guess. But I don't think it's as black and white as it's always been made out. I've never been in the camp of he's definitely going to go. I've never been bought into the narrative that there's people lined up waiting and stuff like that. I think the board are looking. I think they'll go and play their hand and see if they can get somebody in. but we know what they're like. And if they can't and they struggle and they don't get the people that they want at the money that they want, which we know they'll be looking for a bargain, they won't be wanting to pay what people want in terms of whatever it may be, signing on fees or getting people out of contracts or whatever it may be. If there's something that we can mess up, we will mess it up. So the longer that goes on and the longer that happens and people are crossed off our list, the more chance there is that Brady will be in Sullivan's ear and Sullivan will be sitting there thinking, I'm struggling here. Actually, the best thing that we can do is to stick with what we got. And we know what we've got with him. We know how it pans out. It should, in theory, protect our Premier League status, which is ultimately the ambition of the football club. And that's as far as the ambition goes. There isn't anything more than that. So if they feel that David Moyes keeps you in the Premier League again, which I think there's plenty of us who feels like he won't, and it's not a given, but to them, they will feel like it's a given, especially if there's no European football. And I was listening to some podcasts yesterday, and the best season that Moyes had was the one that we basically didn't have any European football. So in terms of numbers, so if they're looking at it and thinking no European football, we've got David Moyes, protects what we need. There's a lot of people going out the door. We'll use Stuyton to try and help him bring a few players in. Moyes will hopefully work with what we give him, and he's got a bit of money to spend, and it might just give Moyes a new lease of life, maybe, if we bring in all these fresh new faces and so on. So look, it will definitely be in the back of their mind that for one thing's for sure, that is something that they'll be considering. And if you put that list down of managers who are shortlisted for West Ham, within that top 5, the name David Moyes is in there. And that's it.
Yeah, I think one thing that I've been thinking about this the last couple of days for obvious reasons, and I also think the length of contract will appeal to the board. What do you think Moyes would want, a 2-year contract possibly? I mean, given Moyes' age, but also just the way the club go about their business and stuff, I think if Moyes was to get a new deal, I think it would be a 2-year contract, and that might actually suit the club because they might see that as a £10 million commitment. And his coaches aren't on big money. Nolan, McKinley, and that, they're not on huge wages for Premier League. Well, I don't think they are anyway. Whereas when you start to approach certain managers like Ruben Amorim, his coaching staff would probably cost quite a lot of money to get them into the club. And as with Graham Potter, for example, Graham Potter brings a big coaching staff with him. So I think, Moyes' coaching team's pretty small when you look at it, really, with McKinley, Noble, Heitinga, and I'm missing someone here. Who am I missing? I can't remember. I don't know. Not that matter, but he's basically got 4 first-team coaches, and that's it. It's quite a small coaching team that he actually has. And like I said, a 2-year contract, that might appeal to the club. So if it goes wrong, so we've only got to pay him off 1.5 years, a year, or whatever. That's all we have to commit to get rid of him. It's not the end of the world. Whereas if you were to spend big bucks on someone like Ruben Amorim, you spend 10, 12 million to get him out of his contract, then he wants 18 million a year so that he can take home 10 million net. Then his coaching team, if it goes wrong after a year, just sack him. It's going to cost the club 40 to 50 million just to sack him. They might think that's too risky. That is too risky for us. So do you think, give us a prediction then, at the minute, what are you vibing? Do you think Moyes will be here or not?
I'm still going to go with not. I'm still going to say that we really do need fresh ideas. We just need to freshen the whole thing up. I think everything's got very stagnant. I think the last season has been difficult. I think that the division between the fan base, we need that to change as well. We just need everybody to be back on board, all together, all united again, and getting behind West Ham next season. So because of that reason, I feel like we definitely need a change. We need some new ideas. We need just a new lease of life. I think we can see it from the way people are humming and ahhing, even going to the games at the back end of the season. I think we've seen people turn away from it a little bit and lose a bit of interest. So we need that little spark to get people interested in getting back over West Ham again and getting behind them. So the manager's the most important thing to achieve that. Some people could say maybe the new signings and spending some money would do that. But I think the managerial is the most important thing that the club can change right now. But like I said, I'm not talking about what I think. I just know what the board are like. I know how they'll be seeing it, and they will see David Moyes as a very, very good option. Like you said, for many reasons, for familiarity, for his experience, for knowing the club, for keeping Premier League survival. Yes, man, do what he says. Yeah, we won't have any issues with him. He'll do whatever we say. All of those things just tick so many boxes for him that he will be high on the list as an option for renewing his contract, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think when you said about like new lease of life and new signings might do that, but I think for some people there will always be an asterisk next to it, and I got reminded of that when I did the video the other day when we've supposedly bid for that 19-year-old Brazilian Wesley Gasova, and when I did that video, and quite a few people said, well, there's no point in Moyes is here, and that's going to be the problem when you bring in players. If Moyes is still the manager, there's that feeling going to be attached to a lot of the signings, which is, well, why are we bringing in this guy when that's the manager? Because he ain't going to play him, or he's not going to use him like how he plays in Brazil is not how Moyes is going to utilise him, kind of thing. So even if you were to bring in new signings, but with Moyes, like you said, that feeling of stale and fed up will still exist, and it'll just cloud the excitement over new signings coming in. I hope they do get rid of him. I'm starting to get a little bit worried in regards to the whole thing, but I feel confident they're speaking to other managers. But then I did a video for Monday which I had to delete because of the news. So it was basically about how like Lopetegui is going to AC Milan, and it came out actually he might be coming to West Ham. I can't delete that one. But in the video, my big concern was, while I was happy that Lopetegui was supposedly going to AC Milan because I really don't want him, my concern was, well, that would be Amorim and Lopetegui that's met with Sullivan, and both of them don't want the job now. So my concern was, what is Sullivan saying to these potential managers? He sat down with two potential new managers, and both of them have said, nah, you're right, thank you. And that was my concern. I've still got that concern lingering, if you like. What's your prediction then? And you're predicting Moyes to go. So who do you think is most likeliest to be the manager at this point?
Well, on what you just said there, actually, just a quick one before I sort of give that. It would be really nice if Moyes does believe some of the stuff that he says. If he believes he is the winner that he says he is, if he believes he's the manager that he believes he is, I would love to see him stick two fingers up to Sullivan and Brady and go, do you know what? After everything I did and everything I achieved for you and all this huge success that he brought to West Ham and how he wins and highest win percentage and everything else, I'd love to see him turn around and go, do you know what? The fact that you went out there and you touted for other managers and you didn't believe in me, and I kind of was in the end your last resort because you couldn't get any better. I'd love to see him stick two fingers up. And if he's a man that everybody thinks he is, and I would have actually a little bit more respect for him if he would do that. But this is the typical David Moyes thing. He can't get other jobs in world football. When we first brought him in, we bring him in. He comes in with his tail between his legs. I'll do whatever you say. Happens second time round. You've basically got rid of me. Stuart Pearce was fuming by how it all happened. All his mates said, how out of order they were to you, Dave, everything else. And then as soon as they come calling again, you come running back with your tail between your legs. Yeah, I'll do whatever you say. Yes, sir. No, sir. That for me is the measure of what the man is. And that's why I don't particularly like him, because I don't think he's got a backbone. I don't think he's got a spine. And I think he's a bit of a vindictive narcissist, to be honest. But I would have so much more respect if he did do that. And then that would throw the cat between the pigeons, and it will be like, actually, wow, what we thought was a guarantee and the control that we thought we had over someone, it hasn't worked out. And our plan of just leaving a man in limbo just in case we can't get anything better has backfired. And it would, I don't know, I just feel like it might shake them up a little bit. So I'd like to see it. And, I don't think it would ever happen. But if that did happen, it would be a big shock. Who do they then go and get? I mean, if that was the case and Moyes did turn around at the end of the season and say, look, actually, I'm withdrawing the potential to be West Ham manager next season, it would be a panic appointment. And what would come? We would end up with, you could see him just instantly going for someone like Graham Potter or someone that is just a very obvious signing. I don't think we're going to get this inspired out of the ordinary for West Ham managerial appointment. I think we will get someone who has managed in the Premier League. I think that's 100%. It will be someone who's already managed in the Premier League. I think Lopetegui is the front runner for them, even though we've had this AC Milan situation. I still think he was the one that they probably wanted the most. I think if anyone out of Amorim, Lopetegui, or anyone they've shortlisted so far was the most likely to have been the one that they would have appointed, Lopetegui was the man. And if that's withdrawn, then it will be the typical obvious out of work Premier League experienced manager, and there's only so many of them about. Yeah. And I think that's what we'll end up with. It won't. At the beginning, when we was linked with Amorim, I thought, hang on a minute, maybe we're going out there and trying to do something here. Maybe we are going to change what we've done before. But again, you go back through our track record of the type of managers we've appointed. It never really changes too much. So I think we'll end up with. I can still see Potter, to be honest with you, mate. I really can see that. I can still see that being a fallback for him. The Amorim goes, Lopetegui goes. Who else have we got? Premier League manager. Kind of okay. His reputation hasn't been totally ruined. So there's still some credibility that we can say as to reasons why that we signed him. Well, forget the Chelsea thing that was a poison chalice and was going to be an impossible job for anyone. Go back to his previous job. He actually done an amazing job and built something that actually what he built was something that West Ham fans always asked for. A lot of our fans were turning around. Look at Brighton. Well, we're giving you that man. Here he is. Here's the man that you said that was doing a fantastic job and had a model of a football club that you wanted and everything else. So look, we've given you exactly what you wish for. Yeah,
I think because he's got a completely different style of play to Moyes, I think the club could appoint Potter and say, well, this is what you've asked for. You've asked for a completely different style. This is what this guy does. He's more possession-based, etc., etc. Surely he's ticking your boxes. What's the problem? I think Lopetegui is the safety net issue for the board. I think that's if we can't get him or him or him, we'll go get him. And then Moyes is almost like the safety net for Lopetegui, which is if we can't get him, then we'll go back to David Moyes. That's why I'm sort of warming to Thomas Tuchel quite a bit in the last couple of weeks, because I think if Premier League experience is a necessity, then I think he might be sort of the better one with the Premier League bit ticked off. He can, in terms of what they've got. There's other managers I'd prefer, but if the Premier League part is crucial, which we believe it is under Sullivan, then I think Tuchel's possibly the best option. It will be a little bit iffy. I think at times the football will be a bit, but I do think it could also be better winning, and it will end in chaos. He will fall out with the board. But at the same time, I'm a bit like, do you know what? Maybe it's time. Maybe it's time a manager took this board to task and didn't just accept whatever they're given. And actually, at the end of the January transfer window, instead of saying, oh, we would have liked to have strengthened, but never mind, actually have a manager say, no, I'm pissed off with this, actually, because two of my attacking players have gone. No one's come in. What am I meant to do? And actually, maybe it's time we had a manager with a bit of front about him that doesn't mind calling out the board to some extent. So he's always fallen out with his employers in the past, Tuchel. But then if in between that, if between appointing him in the row, we can actually do something in terms of winning, then I think I'd be okay with that. I'm up for a bit of an adventure for the next appointment. But David Moyes has been linked to a club. Did you see a club wants David Moyes? Spartak Moscow apparently want David Moyes. I mean, that guy would be the only man in Russia that doesn't want to attack anyone.
Well, he does. Female reporters. He does like attacking people, as long as it's something that he can definitely win. As if it's a battle that he's on top of, he don't mind, does he?
But David Moyes has been linked to Spartak Moscow anyway. Apparently, they've inquired about the availability of David Moyes, but we're not going to discuss that with too much. Take it with a pinch of salt, I think. But that's the rumour that's going around. And we're going to finish up this show with another little bit of fun, like we did last time, Frankie. Last night, you could begin your voting for the end of season awards at West Ham, and obviously there's the big one, Hammer of the Year. Maybe you've already voted, I don't know. But if you have to do your vote right now, who would be getting the Frankie accolade of Hammer of the Year?
Well, at the moment, Emerson's done his best job to withdraw his application. So for me, I just think he's a fantastic player, Emerson. I've really enjoyed watching him. That performance in the final last year was just brilliant. I mean, he just showed all the experience and everything you needed to be a winner. And I think we've seen so many performances from him that were just, that level above, that step up of quality that you just think, do you know what, you're a top player. Unfortunately, I think it's gone downhill a little bit of late, and because of that, and the way that Jared Bowen's kicked on, and just everything, I struggle to see past Jared Bowen for everything, mate. For his loyalty, signing the contract he did, his commitment to West Ham, the way he talks. We get very fed up with the way players talk at times. They don't talk in the way that we want them to. Jared Bowen's like coming out and saying that I want to be captain and this sort of stuff. I mean, he just says all the right things. He inspires us. He gets goals. Even in that Liverpool game, both goals, he's massively part of. Just everything good about West Ham goes through Jared Bowen. And when we miss him and he's not playing, mate, it's the biggest loss. So for me, it goes to Jared. I just think he's had a couple of games where he obviously was injured, couple of missing, whatever, but I just think he's still our main man. I just think he is. And I'll put him above all of them. I put him above Kudus. I put him above Paqueta. I put him above all of them, mate. I just think he's brilliant. And we haven't had a player like that for a long, long time. And he will go down as a major, major West Ham legend, mate. I just think he's the governor, mate. I really do.
Yeah, I completely agree. A few months ago, we discussed it briefly on the build-up show, and I said Bowen, and there's a lot of shouts for Areola at the time, but I'm sticking with Jared Bowen. I think he's our most important player by a mile, and I was hoping he would have got the captain's armband for the last 4 games since he made those comments about wanting to be skipper. Well, there's still 3 left. Hopefully, he can get the armband for those 3 and just give him a chance, really. Put him on trial a bit, and let's see what happens when you're a skipper. See if you can, because he would need to be more of a leader on the pitch. He would need to be more vocal and organising, but this is where sometimes putting an armband on somebody can bring that out of them, and actually he might feel like he's got the authority, whereas at the minute perhaps he's a bit too respecting of other people. Because at the start of the season, I remember him saying he's one of the, I think it was the end of last season, maybe it's the summer, and he said, I'm one of the quieter ones in the change room. I don't get involved in all this shouting and stuff. I just do my business. Then to hear him say, I want to be captain, I think, well, someone's obviously growing in confidence in that change room. And I think sometimes that happens. He's obviously seen Noble leave, and then he's seen Frankie's still here. It's all right. Then he's obviously seen Declan Rice move on as well. So I think sometimes when those big characters do leave, it can offer the opportunity for perhaps the quieter ones to almost establish themselves in the change room. And for Bowen to sort of speak out like that, I think it's something we should take serious, actually, because, like I said, literally less than a year ago, he was saying he was too quiet. And now here he is saying, I want to be captain. So he obviously feels very comfortable in that squad. And there's going to be more senior players moving on this summer, possibly Ogbonna, possibly Aaron Cresswell. Give Bowen the armband for the next 3 games, and let's just see what we can get from him. But yeah,
I think his character has grown, mate. I think he was very much a quiet. I don't think it's come naturally to him. I think his personality is quite timid. I think he is quite shy at times. He doesn't come across like a big character who's vocal. But I think that's changed a bit. And actually, you see him grabbing the game by the scruff of the neck a lot more than he used to and try and pull the team forward. So I think he can definitely be a leader by example, because I think he gives everything to West Ham and his commitment is huge. So there's 2 type of leaders, isn't there? There's one who's the vocal, the motivator. There's that, and there's the lead by example guy. Well, if you want anyone to lead by example, there's no better than Jared Bowen. I obviously didn't put Emerson in the mix there. Did you have a bit of a shout for Areola? Because I think that's the only other one that people may want to throw into the ring.
I think he's had a really good season. I think he's been brilliant for us, but I think Bowen's been head and shoulders above anybody else in terms of consistency, big performances. I mean, look at his statistics. It's ridiculous. He's just outperforming some players that are touted as world class in the Premier League in similar positions. And there's a lot of hype at the minute for Cole Palmer, which I understand. Don't get me wrong. I think Bowen's a better player than Cole Palmer this season. I think Palmer's come on really good, and I think he will go on and become a better player than what Bowen currently is. But no, I think Jared's been sensational for us, quite frankly. And I think, statistically, without Paqueta, we don't win games. Well, I think without Bowen, we don't score goals. I think if he's in the team, I don't feel confident that we're going to grab a couple of goals. And it's almost like, who's going to do something? But when he's in there, I feel confident he's going to score and assist. His set pieces are really good as well. And maybe his character's been aided by hanging around with Danny Dyer Senior. Maybe he comes in the change room, oh, you slags. maybe he gives a bit of that in the game or something. I don't know. But yeah, anyway, nice little love for Jared Bowen at the end of the show. Anything else you'd like to add, Frankie, before we disappear?
No, I don't think so. I guess we haven't got a lot of games left, have we, mate? And 3. Are you looking? Will you be at that last game of the season against Luton, mate? Will you be there?
At the moment, it's a yes, but I'll be honest with you. The desire to go is pretty low at the moment. I've lost the enthusiasm for it, so I think I will go, but it's almost reluctantly, which shouldn't be the case, but it feels a bit like, right, okay, let's just get down there and hopefully we can win, etc. But I think it's because also the fact that a win means nothing. Where it's a period of uncertainty. As I've said on multiple occasions, I strongly think if the club have decided about Moyes, and they must have done, right? I know they keep saying, "Well, sit down, Moyes," and then saying, doesn't mean you're going to decide at the end of the season. It's possible that they should know. And if he's going, if Cresswell's going, if Bonner's going, tell us before the Luton game, so we can actually give these 3 men who have had a big part to play at West Ham, and we'll go down in history at the club. Give us an opportunity. For those that want to, not everybody wants to, that's fine. They don't have to stay. But for those that want to say thank you to these people, give us an opportunity to say thank you. And also let them say goodbye to the fans, because too many times, James Collins is the big one recently, where nobody knew, and he just left the club with a whimper. This man bled, clad in blue, and would give everything for the club. We were in relegation battles, and he was giving everything for us. And he just left out the back door, and it was such a shame. We've got to be better than that as a football club. We have to, because the club are the first people to whinge when a player doesn't show loyalty to them. But, well, where's your loyalty to the players? Where's your respect to the players? And the Cresswell testimonial, the opportunity to say goodbye, the clarity offered to people as well, there isn't any. Even Ben Johnson might be going this summer, and just because the club don't like the fact he won't sign a new deal, can't agree a new deal with him, that's not our problem as fans. Maybe we'd like to say thank you very much to Ben Johnson, an academy graduate going somewhere else. Good luck with the rest of your career, and we hope that you sort of prove the board wrong and that you go on to become a good Premier League player. He's been at the club since he was 17 years. Ben Johnson's been at the club for 17 years. If he's going, can tell us before the Luton game, so actually he's got an opportunity to just maybe be 20 yards behind the rest of the group and have his own mini lap of honour while saying goodbye. And it's just, I think sometimes the club can be classless, and this is an opportunity to do good. And just tell fans and tell the players, and let us have a moment if we wish to. So anyway, what about yourself?
We do. That's exactly the point I wanted to make. I have no interest in the football per se, because there's nothing to play for anymore, really. But you go to them last games to show your appreciation for the season. You go there to say goodbye to the players that won't be there the following season. But like you say, the way that we do things, we don't give fans the opportunity to do that. And for me, it's just wrong. I mean, even if you struggling to get up for it, but if you knew a player that you'd really enjoyed watching, that you'd really sort of backed throughout your years of following West Ham, and then you think, actually it's his last game, I want to get over there, I want to give him an applause off the pitch and say your goodbyes. It's important, mate. It's really important. And again, I think some people won't see it that way. Some people say, oh, whatever, they're just staff and they're just players, and they'll go off and they've made their money, and that's that. They go off into the sunlight, which is fine. I get that, but I think West Ham have always had a bit more about them than that. I remember there's been plenty over the years, like the Repka one when he was leaving and he's crying on the pitch, and Di Canio when he was leaving and he's in tears in the tunnel. That's how much it means to people, and it should mean that much. And if it does mean that much, then we need to do our bit and show what a special club West Ham are. I just think they're all the little things that we just have started to ignore and overlook, and I do think they're really important. And if we were doing that, I would be running over there to make sure that we were saying goodbyes. But like you say, I don't think we will.
It would give me something to look forward to. Johnson, O'Brien and Cresswell, have been at West Ham for 36 years between them. Just those three people. 36 years they've been at that club. Far more than Karen Brady and David Sullivan combined, and far more than anybody. A lot of, not all, but a lot of staff at that club. 36 years is a ridiculous period of service from them.
There's a name that wasn't mentioned in there, Gio.
Which one?
Quite a big one.
Which one?
And it's not a player.
Who?
Mr. Moyes.
Oh, yeah, but I include him in the let people say goodbye to him if he's going. Like, I want him to go. I hope he's not here next season, but I also hope he gets a good send off. And I hope, assuming we still have the trophy, the final's not far away, but assuming we still got that conference trophy, I hope they let him come out with it at the end of the game and walk around the stadium with it. Not just him, but pass it around everybody. I hope Moyes gets to take it out and lift it on the pitch or something. Just give him a round of applause. And yes, at the end of the applause, we might be going, thank fuck. We might be, right? But I think for me, like, people give me grief for this, but for wanting to say thank you, goodbye to Moyes. But I generally would say thank you and goodbye to him. I'd be glad he's going. And I'd be a bit more, if he, at the end of the game, if we didn't know, there's a sense of reluctancy in me, because I almost don't want it to be understood by the club as a show of, can we keep him, please?
Yeah. But do you know what? On that, I'll tell you why we won't do that, because the board will be petrified that all the fans would boo him and it would look really embarrassing. And that's what they think of us. And actually, that's what the media would think of us and everyone. I'm telling you now, we would give him the best send-off. Not send-off, but we would all stand there and we would all clap him. And even the people who don't want him there, West Ham, these sort of things, I always say it, we get a bad rap all the time. We're impeccable at these certain things, always. And I'm telling you that, everyone would stand. And the people who may not want to do that, they would have put their head down, gone down a stairwell, and be on their way to the stop-go signs. They wouldn't show any discontent. I'm telling you now, everyone would stand there, they'd clap and say, right, that's it, and then we move on. And it would be an absolute
be a chorus
fine.
Of singing. They might even sing his song. We've got Super.
Do you know what? Probably
Moyes.
would. Probably would.
But only if you know he's going. If you don't know he's going, I think there's more chance of people booing if his future is uncertain, because it'll almost be like, I need to voice my opinion, or I need to voice the fact that I don't want him here next season. Whereas if it was announced he was going, you don't have to worry about anything like that. There's clarity given. You're able to sing his name and wave him and clap him, because it is a goodbye rather than a please stay next season, because it can be misinterpreted. So I think the club not announcing anything, I think, increases the chances of a few boos or people not joining in any round of applause for David Moyes with that. I think an announcement that he was going, I agree with you. I think everybody in the stadium, well, most people in the stadium would give him that round of applause, and the ones that don't want to participate would be able to just to go, and that's their opinion. I'm not saying that's wrong. That's what they want to do. But I think, I just think the club being coy on it doesn't actually do anyone any good. But so maybe I'm looking forward to the last game more than I was 2 minutes ago. So that's
what we want to hear.
Anyway, Frankie, thank you very much again. Pleasure as always. If you've enjoyed this podcast, I would argue that since you made it to the end, you've enjoyed it. But if you've enjoyed it, please do drop a like on it by clicking thumbs up in the video. Scouty to Hammers Chat, myself and Frankie. I'll catch you in a bit.